All right. Hello, everybody. Hope you all are doing well. This is DFS Army's NBA pre-lock show. We will walk you through the slate, tell you what we're doing, and go from there. B-Dubs, man, it's been a bit. Good to have you back. How have you been?
Good, man. Work life is a bit crazier now, so unfortunately, we'll miss out on a few more slates than I normally do. But I'm definitely glad to be back tonight. Missed you guys, so ready to get going.
You gotta do what you gotta do. You missed a good one last night in the sense of you literally missed a good slate to not play. Uh it's funny. We were talking about it a little bit before the show. We hit on some low-owned guys, like saying focus on the Utah game. We were over the field on Lauri Markkanen, Keontae George. Those guys somehow still didn't do great last night. But it is what it is. I think guys like Scotty Barnes disappointed us and some other guys. So we'll get back on track today. We have a nice 5-gamer. Cujo, Jules,
Yeah,
Shannon.
we were talking about Keontae before the show, and the Phil better just start putting some respect on his name because what'd you say, 10%
He
ownership?
was 10% owned yesterday.
Like I get playing Jazz guys are scary, especially when we just saw them get like completely blown away not too long ago. But Keontae, he's just too good.
Keontae, and then to me, Lauri Markkanen's one of the easiest guys to predict. You play him in soft matchups, and
Yeah,
he smashes pretty much every time. There's so
yeah,
many studs who disappoint us with that shit, but not Lauri Markkanen.
yeah.
But we'll look at today's slate. Chewy said, "Good evening, fellas. Single entry and cash game advice for hand building. If you guys have time, we will definitely get to it at the end of this one. We'll have time. We'll have time. Plenty of time. Showtime, what's up, man? Ballaholics." Chad Moss 26. Good to see you, man. All right, y'all. Let's get on track here. First games first. We have the Suns going up against the Miami Heat. 230 and a half total with a 1.5 point spread. One of the closer spreads we have on this slate. We always talk about it. Miami, they play at a very fast pace, which is good for fantasy point production, but they're still a really good defense. So it's a little bit of a weird mixture, but that's the way they operate. And then Phoenix, no real injury news to talk about here. Brandon, do you like these guys at all, or what's your approach here?
I'm okay with them. I don't have any major issues. I wish I liked them more than I do, just because we say it all the time. We love targeting Miami. They're one of the faster paced teams. So definitely could see a few guys pop off here. Mark Williams, I don't mind. His price is solid at 5,500 in a decent spot. The only concern with him, of course, is the amount of minutes he plays. Like if he was locked in for 30 or more, I'd be all over him. The rest of the field probably would be too, but I mean that's why he's only 15% owned. So don't mind him. Just risky with how they split his minutes with Osa. Brooks is Brooks. He can break a slate or get you like 20 something fantasy points. So no issues there, but kind of targeting other positions or other players at that position. So not going too crazy there. Let me see my exposure so far. I'm right at Phil Wade on Mark Williams, and based on some other adjustments I made, I was getting like 50 plus percent on Brooks. Now I'm only at 5%, so I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
And then Booker, he's just been so inconsistent this season. You think with KD gone, this would have been the season where he's like just one of the better studs
Nope.
compared to guys in his price range, and he's just not. So, not going to force the issue there. I'm at 5%. Um, Royce O'Neal, he's been a little more consistent, decent option, especially at that ownership. If you're wanting to get off some of the chalky Timberwolves, I definitely don't mind taking a shot on O'Neal. But I didn't force him in, and currently not getting any. And then I was getting some good ones showing up. He's another volatile value play, but don't feel strong enough to force him in. I did put a 10% man on Osa though. I just like, especially on smaller slates when he's kind of in this 3K range. Uh, we've seen it before where he's outplayed Mark and just kind of playing that scenario. So kind of a risky play, but low on value play on a slate like this. Definitely taking a shot.
Yeah, I get it. The interesting thing about this slate is that it revolves around the Minnesota guys. And we'll
Yep.
talk about what's happening in Minnesota. But as you can tell from my exposures, I have a lot of Minnesota. And they're all pretty chalky. And so my thought process outside of that is they're cheap enough where you can pretty much play whoever you want to play. And we were talking about a little bit before the show. I think most builds are pretty straightforward. And when that happens, I'm instantly thinking, okay, how can I get different? Like, what are just some spots to do that? And if you're playing 150 lineups like I am, you don't have to get so crazy where you're locking in some of these low-owned guys. You can just start to match field weight exposure or just get slightly over the field on a couple of these spots, and that can be enough to win you a tournament. So that's kind of my thought process here. I'm forcing some exposure to some of these guys who are relatively low-owned, even if I don't love their spot, just to get different in like one or two spots in these lineups. I had to give that massive warning because I hate the Suns. I hate seeing them on any slate. Thankfully, they're not on too many. But Devin Booker he's had no ceiling. He's just a guy, which, like you said, is shocking with all the guys they have out. But he's cheap. The price tag keeps falling. He's 8,700. In a faster pace environment, I'm willing to take a shot on him, even though he is everything I'm typically against. He's just lacking upside. So I have a 15% min on Devin Booker, really just focusing on the price tag and the pace, hoping he can finally have a ceiling performance in this spot at low ownership. But with this being the second highest total game on the slate, I'm willing to take a shot on it.
Disclaimer too, I am playing 20 max too, so kind of taking certain stands. If I was playing 150, then I would at least match the field on some of these guys.
Yeah, and I think that makes total sense. Dylan Brooks, I have a 15% min on. Once again, just another guy who I like to have exposure to. Suns have a really deep rotation, and that's why Mark Williams is a little scary. Like you mentioned, his minutes just aren't super consistent. And it's that way for a lot of these guys on this team. But with that being said, Mark Williams will be a leverage play for me tonight. I just like playing Mark Williams in soft matchups and fast-paced games. We're halfway there here. I will lower my min. I was a little aggressive. I had a 30% min on him, but I'll put a 25% min on him, still keeping him as a leverage play in my book. Just trying to take advantage of his cheap price tag and decent spot / matchup. The Oso play I like. I was tempted to follow you on it, but I'm going to stick to my guns for now. All right. Other side of this game, Phoenix, they're a pretty good defensive team. Not someone I like to pick on too much. Especially, I don't know, I'm just not a big Miami guy. You've had a bit of a better read on these Miami players than I have so far. Miami's only getting healthier, so there's nothing to really worry about from an injury perspective. Anyone stand out for you?
Yeah, I usually don't take it. Mind taking shots on Miami, but like you just said, they're getting pretty healthy, and I mean, I think they're all priced appropriately. I mean, 6,900 is pretty cheap for Hero, but he's still kind of making his way back from that injury, so we haven't really seen that smash game like we've seen in the past quite yet. But definitely don't hate a shot. But again, taking some stands since I'm only doing 20 max, like you said. You wouldn't think so, but Phoenix is actually one of the better defensive teams in the league. So that plus team getting healthy and everybody, I mean, nobody's at a crazy price, but they're not consistent enough for me to feel comfortable going here. But again, if I was doing 150, I wouldn't mind at least matching the field on guys like Bam, Hero, Powell. I did think about Wiggins because he's kind of the cheapest out of all of them. He plays 30-plus minutes, and his floor is pretty scary, kind of like the mid-20s, but his upside is about 40 to 50. So anyone with that kind of upside at 6,100, definitely don't mind taking shots on. But, yeah, overall, I'm just not a huge fan of this spot.
Yeah, in my first run through of the slate, I was just like, hell no, and moved on until I realized how much Minnesota I was going to have.
Yeah.
Same philosophy
Yeah.
as with the Suns. I was just like, okay, let me try to find some reasons to play these guys. No one else will.
Yeah.
And Bam was a little bit easier for me to get to because Mark Williams is not a great defender and also not a great rebounder. There's a rant there. I'm not going to do it. But I like being over the field on Bam here. I know everyone hates him. It is what it is, whatever. I don't feel a particular way about him. So I like being over the field. So I have a 15% min there. Tyler Hero, man, this price tag would look crazy like a year or two ago. Well, he's priced appropriately. Like you said, I have to assume the usage rates will continue to trend up. The minutes will get more consistent with time. He's in that stretch of run where we are used to seeing a bit of a bigger game here. So it's just a dart throw, just being slightly over the field, 10% min on him. It easily could be a Wiggins night, like you said, or maybe even Powell. He was questionable earlier, so I think that has me off him still a bit in a tough matchup. Not a game I'm trying to force too much exposure to, but it's there. It's also the first game of the slate, too, so of course, the more exposure you force to it, the less opportunities you have to late swap. Not the biggest deal to me, but still worth mentioning. Next up, we have the widest spread on the slate. We have the Bulls going up against the Rockets. Rockets are another team I typically don't like to see on a slate too much because they're just a really good defense. I like seeing the Bulls, but they have quite a few injuries, and it's really hard to see this game staying super close. Kobe White is out for this team. Josh Giddey's been out for a little bit now, but that impact is still felt. Julian Phillips is questionable. Doesn't move the needle for me too much, though. But before we kind of get to kind of how you're feeling about things, Brandon, let's see what the chat's saying. Long win. What's up, man? Good to see you. Ballaholic, you always cap Mark Williams. I get that. Probably works for you more often than it doesn't. Your Texans are going deep. I love their defense, man. I love that Texans defense. But beating the Steelers, we gotta calm down a little bit. Calm down.
Pat's offense is a little better.
Yeah, that's gonna be a tough matchup. If y'all can pull that one off, though, hey, I might be on board. Man, Jason, we are all in on the Bones tonight. All in. I'll have negative things to say about him per usual, but still all in. Showtime, you're playing 20 max and going over on Booker. All right, I feel you. Yeah, Powell is in E-Money. That made things a little bit clearer there. Wagwan, Kevin, and then John, of course. I knew someone was going to say it. Bam sucks, man. The guy must be in love or something. Hasn't been that good at all. I don't love Bam. It's just that no one else plays him, and he's not that bad. So I'm going to. It's just 1-for-1 for me. Yeah, CJ does have to contribute. We'll see how he does. All right, Brandon. The Bulls going up against the Rockets. Tough matchup. How are you feeling here?
Yeah, I don't really love this team either. Rockets are enough tough defensive team, and I mean the Bulls could surprise us, but I don't really see them keeping this too close. However, I am taking at least one shot on one guy, and that's Io. I put a 10% man on him just because of his price and playing close to 30 minutes. He's been kind of hovering around 30 to 40 fantasy points with last game, putting up 45. So, again, anybody who's playing that amount of minutes and is this cheap with that potential, I will take a shot on him, even though I don't love the spot. And then, of course, thought about Herder, another volatile option, but he does see a lot of minutes and one of those guys where if he finds his shot and gets hot from the three, he can definitely break a slate at that price. And then Buzelis has been a little bit better. He's another guy where if I was playing 150, I would at least force 10% in to match the field. But again, I don't love him enough to go there in my 20 max.
Jason, we're not there yet, but are you me? Like, I had the same little demon speaking these words of evilness in my head, too. Of course, I took a shot, but it's kind of crazy. I think it worked last time for us.
I'm playing them, too.
It worked last time, but it definitely doesn't mean it's going to work this time. but I'm taking a shot. And Darius, man, you're right. This Bulls lineup is awful, especially with who they're going up against. Same story for me with Phoenix and them. These guys are awful on paper. This matchup is awful on paper. 20 max, I wouldn't even consider any of these guys, really. But like you said, Brandon, I think taking a shot on one of them isn't crazy because I do think it's relatively likely we see a player or two from this game end up in the nuts alongside those Minnesota guys. And I'll be honest, I just don't know who it's going to be. I think you're right. Like taking a shot on Io at 5,300 doesn't feel crazy. Remember, guys like White and Giddey are still out, so the opportunity will be there. Just the matchup is brutal. But I like at least being close to field weight, so I have a 10% min there. Herder, streaky shooter, 10% min. I'll be under the field, but still wanted to make sure I had some exposure if he does pop off tonight. Trey Jones is the last guard I'll kind of have in the mix there, 10% min on him. I like being over. Just one of these guys will have to do something. And at their price tag, with the more ball handling opportunities, it's just a spot I want to have exposure to where I'm over the field. And then last but not least, Buzelis. I have a 15% min on him. I want to be over the field. 6,300 for someone who's dominating usage for this team. It's just someone I want to make sure I have exposure to. Darius said, who will Amon guard? Do you have a lean on that, Brandon?
It's a good question.
If you give me a hot second, I can pull it up. Probably. Let's see. Chicago. He Herder should be on Herder.
I don't think it'll be Trey. I was leaning closer to Herder.
Yeah, but we say it pretty often with basketball. I don't really care about 1-to-1 matchups because they do just swap and move around all the time. Looking for mismatches is literally what basketball, the whole point of it is trying to do, get you to the soft matchup. So it does matter. Like that definitely is a bit of a negative to Herder that he'll probably see Amon most of the time, but usually I just think about defenses as a whole and like the defensive rating. Those are like things to focus on a bit more. Speaking of a team that has an awful defensive rating and doesn't really matter who's on any of these guys, the Bulls, and the Rockets are going up against them. For the Rockets tonight, they are without Tari Eason, which means Aaron Holiday should start for him. And then Dorian Finney-Smith has been out for a bit, so nothing too wild there. I feel like you have to like the Rockets at least a little bit. You're scared of the blowout, but you have to like the matchup at least.
Yeah, it looks like we're pretty close to being on the same page. I didn't go quite as high on Sengun, but I did put a 15% min just to have some exposure there. It's been a while since we've seen a ceiling game from him, but in a spot this good, especially down low where they typically bleed a lot of points. I just want some exposure with somebody with that kind of upside, slate breaking upside. So definitely playing him. And then I put a 10% min on Amen as well. I still wish he was a bit cheaper, but he's in great form right now. Last 2 out of 3 games, at least 55 fantasy points. So again, this matchup this soft, I'm playing some of him. And then I usually take a shot on KD, but especially with Sengun back, his upside is limited and he's just too expensive for me. So I'm just kind of skipped past him and really didn't look anywhere else here.
Yeah. And speaking of like kind of going back to that Amon conversation and focusing on defensive ratings, if you really focus on that, you don't really want to play too much of the Bulls tonight. That's the final conclusion. This is an awful matchup for them, but a one-off isn't that crazy. But usually it's just an avoid spot. But like you, I love Şengün. He's a leverage play for me tonight. I have a 30% min on him. Vucevic is another big who's just really bad at defense. And so it's a spot to target every single slate. And at relatively low ownership, I like being over the field there. Not too many pay-up options on this slate. And we do have value, so it's not too hard to get to him. So he's one I like to make sure is in there. 10% min on Amon. I like the spot for him more than his price tag. So that's why I'm not over the field. 10%, I just at least have exposure. But 8,300 feels like a lot. And that's pretty much it for me. Did you think about Aaron Holiday at all?
Not really, but I will say, like if you're playing Conley, I don't think there's anything wrong to playing Holiday because I feel like they're kind of close to the same play. They both should see decent amount of minutes. They just don't do much with them. So if you want to get off of that Conley chalk, especially if it is a blowout, I can see him probably getting some more run. I don't hate it, but I didn't get there.
Yeah, I don't love it either. But just to kind of mix in another cheapie, I will put a 5% min on him. But kind of like what you're saying, he's not the best play. He's just a very low usage guy. He starts, but he's typically just a cardio machine out there.
Yeah.
So the other guys are just better. All right, game of the slate. We have the Timberwolves going up against the Bucks. Not a terrible total, 229, but the spread is close, which is interesting at 2.5 points. And the reason why you see so many Timberwolves showing up in your lineups is because Rudy Gobert is out, suspended. Anthony Edwards is out with a foot injury. Those are two huge guys for Minnesota tonight. Gobert getting ruled out means Naz Reid should start here. That's what we're all expecting. And then Ant is just a usage monster. And so that just gives opportunity to everybody else to kind of take the weight off his shoulders for a little bit with him not on the court. I mean, all these guys pop naturally, right?
Yeah, for sure. Definitely team of the night. You really don't have to do too much here. I went ahead, just hit the lock button on Bones and Nas and not really think about it. Nas is Bones is almost min price and projected to play 30 minutes. Like I said, not thinking too hard there. And then we've seen it multiple times. Nas without Gobert, 6,100, just way too cheap for this price. And you can play him at power forward too. So especially since I'm playing 20 max, I'm just locking them. Randall, I did cap. I considered almost completely fading him, but I capped him at 40%. He's just not in good form. I know missing 2 stars, so moment will be there for him tonight for sure. And 8,100 for the ceiling we know he has is definitely cheap. He has 60 point plus upside, so he can definitely get it done. It's just a matter of Willie. And I just not a fan of the form he's in. He's shooting horribly right now and just not playing well overall. So still have enough to where if he goes off, I'll be okay. But if he fails, not going to entirely kill me. So kind of taking somewhat of a stand there. DiVincenzo, great form. I love his price, 6,200. Coming off a monster game, 50 point game. Don't think he'll do that again, but definitely has at least 40 point potential in this spot. Conley, he was popping like crazy. Luckily, with some of the other adjustments I made, actually, he was showing that 5%. Now he's back up to 20%. So we already mentioned him. Not the biggest fan. He'll get a good run tonight, but just not a high usage guy. But he does help you fit other guys in, like Giannis, mixed in with some of these other lower tiered studs. So okay as a line filler, but probably avoiding him in my single entry, to be honest. And then Jaden McDaniels, I'm just kind of matching the field there. He's another inconsistent guy, but plays a ton of minutes and can get you around 40 fantasy points. So definitely don't mind him at that price. I consider Jalen Clark too as another lower owned value play, but definitely since I'm playing 20 lines, I didn't get there.
Yeah. E-Money, Turner is out. That is interesting. He's talking about Miles Turner from the Bucks. He's the center over there, which should make the matchup even softer for these guys, like Naz Reid in particular. Sometimes have we seen Naz Reid not start in this spot before? I feel like that happens sometimes. Am I crazy? Am I losing it?
Um, we might have, but I feel like more times than not, he definitely starts.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I'm losing it. Either way, though, if he doesn't start, I've now learned it doesn't matter. I'm still playing Naz Reid in this situation. I was with you actually with the Julius Randle fade earlier, and ultimately I ended up still just letting him show up however much he wants to, mostly because he's still a little too cheap without Anthony Edwards. I just think he should be priced a bit more. If he was in the 9K range like Jamal Murray's price, I would consider the fade way more seriously. But at 8,100, if he doesn't get there, he's just really sucking tonight because the usage will be there, rebound opportunities will be there, matchup will be there without Miles Turner. It's just he hasn't been that great lately. So a little bit of both sides there, but I'm just going to kind of eat that. He's showing up in 70% of my lineups right now, so going to be way over the field there. Bones Highland, good old Bones. He's showing up in 99% of my lineups. If he was more expensive, he's another guy I would consider fading. But at 3,100, the way I think about Bones Highland is he is another guy who doesn't typically do too much while he's out there. We saw him start earlier this season, like in December, when Ant was out, and he had like 23, maybe 25. I don't remember, 20 plus fantasy points. But at this price tag, that's enough. He played a ton, but only had 20 fantasy points or 23, 25, one of those. And that's enough at that price tag. So as long as he's this cheap, I will allow it. And then Mike Conley, I have a soft spot for. He was a part of my first 100K winning lineup. And so Mike Conley, call it a bias, call it just the memories and trying to hold on to that. I'm not going to cap him. I'm with you, though, Brandon. Normally I would, but we go back. I can't do it to my guy. This is maybe the last time we'll see a lot of minutes. Old man Conley out there, do something, man. Just do something. He's not a high points per minute guy. He's a very low usage rate guy. He rarely takes the shot. He's been that way for years. So I don't disagree that capping him isn't the wildest thing to do, especially at this ownership. But at 3K, I'll allow 50%. We'll ride with it. And then I feel a bit better about some of the other guys like Jaden McDaniels. I like more with Turner out too. If Julius Randle is struggling offensively, it wouldn't shock me. And if DiVincenzo's not making his shot, Jaden McDaniels is sometimes like that third guy to really get going. He just does a lot for this team in general. So there's a lot of different ways he can get there at 5,800. But like you said, he's not the most consistent. Darius, man, you've been here long enough. You know, those are my guys. People who are relatively new, they don't know, though. They're like, what are you talking about? Good question, man. How many Wolves is too many? Brandon, what's your thought process on this? Did you make any rules to limit them or anything like that?
No rules, but if you're playing one line, I definitely would not go over 4. I believe I have 3 in mind currently, but 4 would be my max in single entry.
Yeah. That's usually my train of thinking too, is like if you're playing single entry, you usually don't need to go over 3 or 4 in a lineup. But just kind of looking through these lineups, I didn't make any rules or anything. I see 5 showing up on occasion. We would need all these guys to be pretty efficient, especially guys like McDaniels and Randall for this lineup to really work. But when there's a spot like this, I usually go pretty heavy on it. Thomas, you did cap Conley, right, Brandon?
No, well,
or he was only showing up for you.
I might have to because now he's showing up at 60% on my last run. So
you have more than I do
yeah.
at that point.
Yeah, I'll probably cap him.
Yeah. Long story short, though, if you're only playing a couple lines, 3 or 4, if you're playing multiple, I wouldn't make a rule. Especially if you're playing more than 20. If you're playing 20, I could still understand maybe setting a rule of 4 or 3, but I wouldn't personally. All right. McNasty said okay, you're looking at the Bucks already. We'll go ahead and get there. I want to make sure I'm not forgetting anyone. We talked about Highland, Naz Reid, Julius Randle, Dante DiVincenzo, Mike Conley, McDaniels, all showing up for me over the field. Jalen Clark is showing up in 3% of lineups. I don't hate that. He's another guard who should see some time out there. He's just slightly more expensive than Bones and Mike Conley, and expect to see less minutes than them too. All right, other side of this game, we have the Bucks, and we did get the news that Miles Turner is out, which makes things a little bit clearer for us. Oh, I was on the wrong tab. Let me get back to Milwaukee. With Miles Turner now out, we can typically expect one of like Bobby Portis to move into the starting lineup or Sims to start for him. Those are two possibilities that could happen. And then, of course, there's usage rates that move around with Miles Turner out. Miles Turner is typically not the highest usage rate guy, but anytime a guy is out, that helps. Miles Turner also hasn't been playing 30 plus minutes, so he's been playing more like 20 to 25 minutes here recently. So there aren't quite as many minutes as you might think there are to go around, but still worth mentioning. What are your thoughts with the Bucks, man?
Yeah, I wasn't on this team too much before that news. Like it was pretty much just Giannis for me and move on. But I mean, I think Turner out definitely changes some things, especially with some of the guys that Timberwolves are missing. So Giannis, of course, becomes I thought he was already a good play, especially last game. It was good to see him kind of have one of his normal games. We finally saw him kind of get over 60 points. So hopefully that means he can kind of get back to his old self. So
he's going to be the highest owned stud on the slate now.
Yeah. So
by a long shot.
For good reason. I mean, I know SGA and Wemby are on the slate, but this spot is just really good for Giannis and could potentially be the highest scorer tonight. So definitely we'll have a lot of Giannis. Didn't have to force in KPJ. He hasn't been in the greatest form, but again, I love this game environment overall. It's pretty easy to fit him into line. So currently at 25% after my last run. Kuzma, he was a pretty easy fade for me now, but again, with Turner out at 4,300, his minutes should increase. He's going to be a viable play, unfortunately. So won't have anything crazy. I'll probably be around 15 or 20% there. And then not showing any Ryan Rollins. He's kind of up and down too, but somebody I wouldn't talk you off of if you wanted to go there. Don't see any Portis yet either, but I might put like a 10% min and kind of react after we get a update on ownership. I guess the starting line matters too. And then I think AJ Green, especially with some of the other turds we're playing tonight, I think he's in consideration too. He's definitely volatile, but even before the Turner news, he was already seeing 30-plus minutes, and he's another streaky shooter. But we've seen him have multiple 30-point games. So if he can get 30 tonight at 4,500, that might just be enough to be in the nuts, especially if he stays at this ownership. So I'll have a 10% min there.
Yeah, I think these ownerships are just going to change really fast. And so I definitely recommend keeping a close eye out on those. Slate doesn't lock until 7:30 today, though, guys. We have time. Yeah. Don't force it too much. But like I said, I do think Giannis is going to be one of the chalkiest studs on the slate. His ownership's already gone up. I think right before the show was at 15. Now it's at 26. I wanted to be double the field earlier, so I had a 30% min on him. Now he's basically at 26% ownership. And so I'm close. I rarely ever do a 60% min on people these days. And so just to try and keep that, I have a 55% min on Giannis. I really just trying to make sure I keep exposure to him with this just being a pretty good spot for him. Without Gobert on the other side, kind of protecting things at the rim. And then KPJ, you'll hear it very often. People don't like playing him when Giannis is back. But we've seen it already that it didn't really change too much for him last time around when this happened. And so with Giannis playing more consistent minutes now, it's not going to scare me off KPJ. So I have a 20% min on him. especially going up against guys like Mike Conley and some of the other guards on the other side. I'm not overly concerned about the matchup here, like I usually would be against the Timberwolves. And then Kyle Kuzma, like you said, he was an easy fade for me before Turner was out. I do expect him to be more involved without him, and so I put a 30% min on him. Just calling it a day there, so I don't have to worry about him too much more than that 30%. If he starts to show up more than 30, I am going to cap him around 40%. I don't really want him to show up too much more than that, but it's a spot. He just lacks upside typically, and like I keep saying, I don't love guys who lack upside. Herter or Hardaway Jr.? I already know it's going to be a conversation we're going to have. We're not at Tim Hardaway yet, but we're almost there. Next up, we have Denver going up against the Pelicans. We know the Pelicans very well. They're a team I like to pick on a lot, and I am a little disappointed by this game because I'm not attacking them as much as I would have liked to. But for Denver, Jamal Murray's questionable. That's a really big deal. If he's out, we would expect Pickett to start again. Christian Brown, Joe Val, Nikola Jokic, Cam Johnson, all those guys are still out. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, this is my favorite game of the night, to be honest, and I'm loading up on this side and the other side as well. So the obvious is Aaron Gordon, of course. He played 32 minutes last game and looked really good. So 6,500 is just too cheap with him getting up back to his normal minutes. And probably it's debatable with Chicago, but probably the softest matchup on the slate. So I'm not overthinking that spot, and he will be a core play tonight. I do have a 20% min on Murray just in case he does play. For reasons I just said, the matchup is just way too good. I know 9,800 might be hard to stomach for him, but when there's no Jokic and he's in a spot like this, I definitely don't mind attacking that spot. Peyton Watson, I think he is another guy who's not getting enough respect right now. Will he come back down to earth? Of course, but again, love the spot quite a bit. He got Player of the Week last week for the Western Conference. He's averaging last 4 games, averaging over 24 points, 8 rebounds, and I think like 4 or 5 assists. So he's just absolutely smashing right now. In a 9% ownership, I'm going over the field, and he will be a leverage play for me. So have a 20% min there. Tim Hardaway Jr. So y'all might think I'm crazy. Kind of a huge stand. Probably not a necessary one, but since I'm only doing 20 max, I don't mind taking this risk. But I boosted his projection up, and currently a core play for me now. Just with all the guys that are out, he's seeing a ton of minutes, especially with Christian Brown out. He's soaking up all those minutes at the forward position. He came off the bench last game. I was on him. He saw 35 minutes and put up 33 fantasy points. So going right back to him again, especially with some of the other questionable value we have on the slate. He's in a much secure position than some of the other guys we mentioned. So just taking that risk at 5% ownership. If he does what he did last game, then I'll be sitting pretty. So again, just taking a stand. And he's even better if Murray is out too. So probably don't need to make him a core, but I at least recommend getting some leverage. That ownership might go down even lower with that Turner news that we just got. I'm sure the Phil would be going to cheap Kuzma. So definitely love him tonight. Only going to play Pickett if Murray is out. I don't love the price tag, but he will be viable if Murray misses. And then Najee, I did put a 10% min on him. He's just another cheap guy who's getting a ton of run. I think 2 games out of the last 4, he's put up around 40 fantasy points. So again, in this spot, especially against this front court, who's not the best defensively, I'm taking a shot at 2% ownership. So um, some chalk on this side, but a lot of low own spots that I love forcing in.
No, I think a lot of that made sense. I respect you a lot, and that's why I'm now considering Tim Hardaway Jr. He was almost me following you, but not completely. I was gonna make him a leverage play and call it a day. But I think I will bring it back down to 5. I think you're right. His ownership will just continue to fall, and so 5% should give me some decent leverage still. Not as much as you will have, but should still give me some decent leverage if he pops off. So hopefully that comes through. And then, like you mentioned, Najee, this matchup's so good. The issue is just they don't really have any real center options, and so they don't even know what they're doing at the 5 right now. And so his minutes just aren't secure. But the matchup's great. So 5% min on him. I've been going back and forth on that since I started looking at this slate. And then Aaron Gordon was showing up for me naturally in about 60-70% of lineups, but with all the news and other changes, that's fallen. And so I put a 40% min on him to make sure he keeps showing up. He's someone I like to see in a lot of these lineups at his price tag in this matchup. Not, like you said, not going to overthink that spot. Peyton Watson, I'm with you, man. Have a 10% min on him. People just keep sleeping on him. He does everything for this team. So he does need to score, obviously, but he can get rebounds. He assists. So those are guys I like having exposure to. And so 10% min there. And then 20% min on Jamal Murray. If he plays, this is a good spot for him. He's pricey, but price doesn't matter that much on this slate. So 20% min on him. And hopefully his ownership's relatively low if people get scared about that Q tag. All right. Next side. Ooh, just got the news. This is not relevant to any of y'all. That Kenyon Sadiq, tight end for Oregon, declared for the draft. Future Panther right there. It's a future Panther. But for the Pelicans tonight, they are without Herb Jones, no Jose Alvarado. Herb Jones being out, he's been out for a little bit now. Doesn't change too much for me because the rest of this team is healthy. Do you like any of these guys? I know you said it's your favorite game, so I'm sure you do.
Oh yeah, quite a bit, and the ownership on this side of the ball is even better. You got a couple somewhat chalky guys, but nothing too crazy. Looks like we're on the same page for a couple guys at least. Zion, definitely little concern. Hasn't been in the best form. A lot of that is just due to the minutes he's been playing. On average, he's been playing around 30 minutes, but there have been a couple games where he's seen a couple minutes above that. So hopefully this will be a spot where he can kind of go past what we have projected, 29. And then I also, especially if you don't have a lot of faith in Randall, I definitely don't mind Zion as a pivot from him. So yeah, we'll have some exposure there. Trey Murphy, I love quite a bit. Threw a like on him and forced in 30%. I just love his upside. And again, this game environment overall, he has 60-point upside and another great shooter. When he's knocking them down, he is just one of those guys you wish you had more exposure to. So definitely going over the field there. Derek Queen, our guy. Of course, the biggest concern is whether the team is going to be stupid or not and mess around with his minutes. But like you said, Denver doesn't really know what they want to do at center, losing their 2 top guys down at the 5. So with that being said, this matchup is just too good not to take the chance on Queen. We've seen the potential that he has when he does get run, and no one down low should be able to stop him. So didn't go quite as aggressive as you did, but I did force in 20% as a leverage play. I love that you can play on that power forward too. So just nice ownership with nice upside. And then have a 15% min on Misi for the same reasons. Again, got some very questionable chalk. He's almost min price, playing close to 20 minutes and has been hovering around 20 fantasy points. So if he can get you 20 at 3,300 on a slate like this, again, that might be enough to do some damage. So definitely wanted to get some exposure there. And then I considered Fears and Bay, but I didn't get to those two.
So do you have a answer, Herder or Hardaway Jr.?
Yeah, Hardaway for sure.
Yeah, I go back and forth on it because I don't really like either one. But let me see. Where does Tim Hardaway tap out? Here.
Yeah.
Herder has a little bit more upside. I'll go
That
Herder.
model agrees too.
Does it?
Or not over Herder, but I mean just in general about Hardaway being a good play.
Agreed. He shows up a little bit. Some
And the environment is better too. Like Herder isn't a potential blowout. I know we don't play for blowouts, but
what's still worth mentioning.
Yeah.
Kuzma was popping even before that news earlier, and I was just like, I'll ignore that. And then now here we are. Here we are. Yeah. Hey, Brandon said the Hardaway play was going to be gross.
I said it was gross.
He knew. Yeah. All right. For me, when it comes to the Pelicans tonight, I don't love this spot, honestly. Aaron Gordon's just a really good defender, and he's always everywhere. Whoever I play, he just ends up shutting down. And so it just kind of makes me not love this spot for a lot of these guys. But I do, kind of like I mentioned with Phoenix and who was it? Phoenix and the Bulls. I just want to take some shots on some of these lower owned guys. Below 15% ownership, for me, I only consider this a 4-game slate, but y'all can say it's a 5-game slate. It's very, very low. And so I have a 15% min on Zion. He's someone I want to be over the field on, or just close to field weight exposure. I don't like this spot for Trey Murphy, but like you said, it wouldn't shock me if his shot is just really falling today. I just don't love it personally. Derek Queen, man, the minutes are inconsistent, but I will take a shot on a low-owned Derek Queen as long as he stays below 7K over and over and over again. So 30% min on him. I'm hitting it really, really hard. When you play him, though, you have to realize there is risk involved of him just playing 22 minutes, maybe getting 30 fantasy points, but the ceiling is 50, 60 type of upside in a really soft matchup. And so that's what I'm betting on with a 30% min there. Then outside of that, I don't like the rest of these guys. They're starting to give these other players on the team just more minutes. And so it just makes some of the cheap role players gross. This is the game I'm saying I don't love on this slate. Decent total at 230, 8.5 point spread. Just two really good defensive teams when Wemby's healthy. The Spurs have an 8.5 point spread, like I said. And then from an injury news standpoint, we have Devin Vassell listed out, but he's been out for a while now. We know the Thunder are a really good defensive team pretty much everywhere. Are you taking a shot on any of the Spurs?
I wasn't at first, but then I thought about it, especially the Spurs seem to be OKC's kryptonite. They've owned them so far the last few games. So I am taking a shot on Wemby. Probably not the smartest thing, especially if he continues to play at a limited amount. But I think him and Chet they like kind of going at each other, and just hoping that this might be the game where we potentially see him play more. I know it's probably not a smart DFS strategy because we don't even know if they're gonna announce when he's gonna play more. So just kind of playing more for game theory wise, but overall, I think this could be it's probably smarter to fade, especially with the spot that Giannis is in now. And then I did take one more shot. Champagny might seem gross at 5,800, especially in this spot. Like I said, not the best matchup. We don't like to target OKC, but I like the form that Champagny's in. He's been hovering around 30 to 40 fantasy points in. He's another guy that's popping big time on the sim model too. So should continue to get a ton of minutes, and definitely don't mind taking a shot on him with how Spurs usually play against OKC. Couldn't get anywhere else. Castle and Fox I did consider, but they're both just a little too inconsistent for my liking.
I really want to like this team. I do, because they're all low owned. We've seen them all pop, but we just don't see guys pop against OKC very often when they're pretty healthy. Victor Wembanyama, y'all know that's my guy. That's my guy. But I think, and it scared the hell out of me too, but the most recent injury after he was already injured for a while, I think it scared the hell out of the Spurs. They're like, we're going to be careful with you. And I don't think it's dumb to bet on players who are returning from injuries after a little bit of time. I'm kind of doing the same thing with Heroes. Like, hey, eventually they will get into form and they'll see more runs. Thanks, man. Eventually they'll see more runs and they'll see more time. And so that's one of those spots where I'm willing to get exposure to someone, especially while they're still low owned. I don't like it when they're chalky and they haven't seen a lot of minutes. That's what I'm like, that doesn't make sense. We can't all try to be early to the party. But if no one else is early, I don't think it's a terrible shot. I'm not taking that shot, but I don't think it's crazy. I don't like these guys, so I'm not playing them. And so we'll see. A little bit of Champagne is showing up naturally in the DS around 1%. And that's gonna be it. Showtime, I'll show you kind of where we're at with Giannis once this wraps up. For the Thunder, also a tough matchup against the Spurs, or against the Spurs. Do you like these guys? They are getting some ownership.
Yeah, like is a strong word, but I am playing a couple guys. I did put a 15% man on SGA. I know, especially the last couple games he's played against them, hasn't had the best history, but on a smaller slate, I just want to have some exposure to a guy with his potential upside. And then I didn't at first, but when Lou Dort got ruled out, especially with some of the other 3K turds like Conley, I forced in 15% Caruso at 3,500. So risky play for sure, but typically when they're in competitive games, he's kind of one of those guys that kind of is a spark for the team. So definitely don't mind taking a shot there. I consider Chet almost, but he definitely doesn't have a good history against the Spurs, especially with Wemby playing. And then I think Jalen Williams is a little too pricey for me. So, yeah, overall, don't like this team, but at least taking a couple shots on SGA and Caruso.
Hey, taking shots on low-owned studs, man. I get it. I get it. For me, like I said, it's a 4-game slate for your guy. I'm not looking at these guys. I didn't do anything to make that happen. It's just happening. So Cason Wallace is showing up in 1% of lineups. Alex Caruso is showing up in 11% of lineups. Alex Caruso is just another value play who I think sucks at this point. He just doesn't see a lot of minutes, so he's not someone I'm overly excited about. So he's showing up, he's there, but not someone I'm trying to prioritize. I always want to find a reason to play Chet because he just always feels a little cheap. But yeah, it's going to be a pass for me. Showtime said, what's your exposure to Giannis? Where are you at, Giannis?
I'm bouncing around 40 to 50%.
Yeah. I put a 55% min on him just so I don't have to think about him anymore. And then if he happens to show up more than that, that's fine. But he's going to be super chalky on this slate. So that's just kind of where we are at this point. And then we had a question at the start of this from Chief. I don't want to offend you with trying to mispronounce the first part of what you're saying. Any single entry and cash game advice for hand building? Do you have any words of wisdom, Brandon?
Yeah, cash is fairly simple. You want to target the higher owned guys. So, I mean, tonight, for instance, you definitely want quite a few of the Minnesota guys. And then feel like Giannis is definitely a must in cash now with his upside and ownership rising. Just looking for spots like that. And then single entry outside of cash is kind of a similar approach. You just try to find that 1 to 2 lower owned pivot. So quite a few guys like that I mentioned in the Denver and Pelicans game. There's quite a few low on guys with some nice upside that you can throw in a single entry. That's honestly my single entry will kind of have a lot of pieces from that game, along with Minnesota. Not sure if I want to go to Giannis yet or not, but because I pre-built my line before the show, but I'll see what it looks like with Giannis included. But yeah, that's kind of the approach that I take.
So much changes. And yeah, I don't have anything else to add. I maybe spend 3 minutes total on my single entry lineup. But I always respect those who have the galls to really just stick to their guns with one lineup. That's an impressive trait. So that's pretty much the slate, y'all. 5 games. If you have any more questions, feel free to click the link in the description. Use promo code BDUB for a 10% discount so you can have access to the Discord and the DS. Looks like we did just get news that the Bucks will try to limit Giannis to around 30 to 31 minutes. Does that dramatically change the way you're looking at things at all?
Not really. If anything, that might make me stay where I'm at on single entry and not go there. But definitely, if you're doing 20 plus lines, then I'm okay with. I mean, I wouldn't go too crazy, but I'm definitely comfortable around 40 to 50% still.
Yeah. Giannis is limited. Yes, he is limited. The thing is, though, we have him projected for 32 minutes, and he's now projected to be around like 30 to 31 minutes. So that's one less minute. It shouldn't change things for you too crazily, but like you mentioned, like a single entry lineup, I think it's fine to fade the highest owned and most expensive stud, really, no matter what. So do I think this limit should change the way you're thinking about the slate? No, not really. Like you mentioned, John, he can still get there in 31 minutes. It doesn't change much. It's just one more reason to think about it a little bit longer. But I'm going to keep this 55% min on him and go from there. Anything else you want to add, Brandon? You'll be back tomorrow.
Yep,
So
I'll
we'll
be
have
back
another
tomorrow.
good one.
Yep.
Sleep. All right, y'all. Good luck tonight. Don't forget to like this stream because we need to get those up. But we'll see y'all tomorrow. Peace out, guys. Bye.